Thank you. Thank you for taking part in this amazing New York Comic Con panel. It's kind of a little different than what we've usually done, but I think we can still have fun with it. And I want to focus on you guys entirely. I want to focus on what skill sets you bring to the book. Because to me, that's, we tried to come up with a diverse publishing schedule, and we have 4 people here who are, each of whom has as different a skill set as you can imagine, I think. So I'd like to focus on that. I want to know, for your book, what kind of research you did to develop the plot and the threat inherent to your book. I'd like to know how that fit with your strengths as an author. And I want to know, how did that then fit into the book itself when you brought that into your story? So I'm going to go with you guys alphabetically. So Weston, I'm going to start with you. Yep, sorry. But hey, you're used to combat. Don't look like somebody who's caught in the crosshairs. But so if you would let me know, what kind of background, what kind of research did you bring to the Alien Infiltrator novel?
So it was interesting because when I was approached by you, Steve, to work on this project, you said, Weston, I know you have a background in military, but we don't want to have any military in this. We don't want to have any colonial Marines, even though this is the year of colonial Marines. We want your characters to be scientists. Holy smokes. Now, I have a Master's of Fine Arts degree in creative writing, 260 credit hours, and I clept the science portion that I had to do. 6 hours of science for the whole thing. So to ask me to go against everything that I had to really threw me for a loop until I decided, hey, what if I have these guys be reserve Colonial Marines or retired Colonial Marines or, a Colonial Marines in a previous life? In which case, I kind of snuck those in there. So I was able to use my military background a little bit and the sciencing of it, using that as a verb, so that I could make everything realistic. I think one of the things that I've been doing recently is I've really been, especially because of my 2 recent Afghan deployments, I've really been able to capture what it means to have PTSD. And I wanted to make sure that a lot of my characters were able to demonstrate that in various levels, because I hate the fact that PTSD is always seen as a bad thing. I mean, it's considered, some people have called it, PTSD is like the weather. Anybody can encounter it. You don't have to go to war. You could be a first responder. You could be the guy who just helped somebody cross the street who just got hurt, or picked up a dog that got hit by a car. I mean, it's how your brain, deals with that manufactured problem. And the challenge here, especially given a construct that is going to take place on X planet with X people, is how I was going to have them work together or not work together based upon their own history.
Well, and it seems to me that through a lot of the world, PTSD is sort of taken as one specific thing, whereas it seems as if there are as many different manifestations of PTSD as there are human beings who encounter PTSD.
Absolutely. And I try, and when I can, write at least one PTSD positive character, somebody who has PTSD who becomes the hero because of that PTSD, not the antagonist because of the PTSD. I mean, it's so easy for us writers to take a shortcut and make the PTSD sufferer the person on the water tower shooting everybody, but that's not who we are. I mean, since I've come back from Afghanistan, I've realized that, the person road raging the car next to me, they might be road raging for a thing that I don't even know. And so I've gained a lot more patience for them,
Well, and in Alien Infiltrator, you have characters who are former military, but they're scientists, they're security people, they're techs. So each person is going to have his own individual reaction to what's going on. And in the alien universe, there certainly are a lot of opportunities for PTSD.
And in my daily life, I see people like this all the time. I see people who might have spent a couple years in the military or a whole career in the military, and then they reinvent themselves and they become something else. And so to call them just one-dimensional is ridiculous. So I try to make them as multidimensional as possible.
Well, and also we got to keep in mind that you're doing a book that's leading into a game, because it's going to be leading into a video game that's going to be coming out sometime in the future. The schedule is still to be established, but you needed to set the stage. And in my own defense, I didn't exactly say you couldn't have military, but it was true that by nature of the book, we needed to have focus on a scientific team. And so you were able to populate that team and the people around the team. And that gave you a fairly broad spectrum to cover. And
yeah, you have to admit, I was pretty sneaky there, Steve.
Oh, you were very sneaky. Well, I would expect no less. But in being sneaky, you also created a really nice diversity.
Good.
Okay.
I'm glad. Thank you for that.
Now, Chris Rachel, is that how it's pronounced?
Chris Rachel, it's a long first name.
Okay, Chris Rachel, your book is slightly different from anything else that we've got here. So I'm going to actually let you explain what your book is, because it can't really be much different. It's very different.
Okay, so I'm the author of Aliens, the Cookbook. And so I've been doing this a while. I run Kitchen Overlord, which is a nerd website and also a small press publishing company. And this is my 9th nerd cookbook. So I've been around the block a couple times on this. And when I was first approached for this project, my first thought was, there's literally no food in Aliens. What am I gonna do here? And told them to give me a couple days. Let me see if I can come up with anything and I'll get back to you. And then I had this great idea that I think got executed so well in the book. I know how humble that sounds, but I'm pretty pleased with how it came out, which is, what if I look at it from the life cycle of an alien? So the book has 4 main chapters, which are eggs, face huggers, chest bursters, and alien queens. And from there, it's a matter of food and geometry. Because the thing that I've learned being a cookbook author for nerds all this time is what they really want is something that's instantly recognizable that you can take to a watch party. And when I started this, watch parties were still a thing, and they will be again in the future, I'm sure of that. So I had to sit down and do a whole lot of edible geometry and then come up with things that a home cook could actually realistically do without, my level of culinary training. And not dumbing it down, but like just simplifying things so that it's still instantly recognizable.
Can I just say the phrase edible geometry is amazing?
Thank you. It's
like
what I
there's
do for a
blasphemous
living.
Geometry, there's edible geometry.
It's honest to God what I do for a living. Like when kids come up to me at conventions and go, oh my God, I want to be you when I grow up. And their parents are like, oh my God, no, please. I don't want to hear another artist tell my kid, like, all you have to do is follow your hopes and dreams. My answer is, take all the classes that you were told that you, like all the boring things that you think you're never going to use, and take a lot of math. And like, what? I don't understand. Like, honey, all I do all day is geometry and sculpture. Take all the things. I thought I was going to be a history professor. So yeah, geometry and sculpture. And in the before times when I was doing this, I would walk through a grocery store trying to come up with things, and I'd pick up, I'd pick up an individual piece of fruit and I'd be studying it like, okay, how is this gonna fit in? And then I was doing all my primary food photography in February, and I don't know if y'all remember, a little something happened around then. Not only was there no food in the stores, but it's no touchy on everything. So I'm wandering around looking like a super creep, like really peering as close as I can at things and circling individual food items, trying to like imagine it without picking it up. Because once you pick it up, you buy it back in February and March. And there was nothing on the shelves anyway. I'd gone from, with the primary food photography, being able to just like casually go up the road to Sprouts, grab a Buddha's hand and some fresh figs just for the background. That's not even the main thing. To walked in February, there's literally no food on the shelves. Doesn't matter, there's a hard deadline, because as you all know with publishing, if it's gonna be on the shelves in December, it's gotta be done by March. Like, it takes a certain amount of time just to get things printed and shipped, etc. So I'm wandering around stores and there's nothing but grapes because everybody touches grapes, so nobody was willing to buy any of them. Like, what am I going to do? So I had to completely revise which recipes I was actually going to photograph based on the food I could find. And I think the end result is clever in a different way than I'd originally intended, because there's a consistency of things in the background that wouldn't have been there if I'd been able to just go grab a whole bunch of original fresh fruit. Like, there's an acorn squash that I named Martha that's in the background of everything because it looks slightly menacing with the ridges and reminded me a little bit of eggs. Like, Martha's in 50% of the photos. She was my friend. But yeah, so the thing that I think that people will get out of this is, just like with any fandom cookbook, any well-done fandom cookbook, if you go to your friend's house for a watch party and you want to show, like, I am one of you, especially if it's a meetup or a convention where you don't know everybody and you just really want to fit in, but maybe aren't that great with talking or you're nervous or whatever, you can show up with a tray of alien eggs or a tray of chest bursters, and everybody's going to instantly recognize and be like, one of us, one of us. And you're going to get that instant praise and that instant sense that you belong there.
Now, I do have a question, though.
Yeah, please.
In order to prepare this food, are we going to have to stick any of it to the wall?
No, you are not.
Okay, then we can clear. We don't need to clear space on the wall and get ready to glue everything down.
So no. You might have to do a teeny tiny bit of sculpture in places, but it's not that hard. I've really tried to simplify things as much as possible, so that a lot of times, like, my favorite recipe that I think that people, that's accessible that people will be able to make is alien chestburster banana cream pies. And it's just like basic little miniature banana cream pies. You get the, so much of, like, 3 months of this was me literally just like looking at food going, what can I make in these 4 shapes? But you've got the cream on the top, you've got a banana that you just like run over with a chopstick on the sides to get those little flanges going. You shove some slivered almonds in there for a mouth, a little bit of beady eyes, and then you just drizzle some strawberry syrup on top. And it just looks like, I'm here for you.
I'm going to stop you on that note because I want to bring Scott in, but it does sound pretty good, and it could come in handy as if the pandemic goes on for much longer.
Thank you.
Now, Scott, you brought in a very different angle to Aliens, and I'd like you to just sort of talk a little bit about what kind of research you needed to do, given how extremely different Aliens Phalanx was.
Well, one of the disadvantages with writing in the world of Aliens, which I encountered when I did Aliens Bug Hunt, and one of the few stories that is written from the Xenomorph's point of view, is the lack of canonical scientific knowledge about the Xenomorph in its various names. And working with you on that, Steve, and working with Fox, I talked to a lot of scientists and military people trying to find a way to explain everything we had seen in movie 1 and in Alien and in Aliens, and really went in depth on it. That got pushback from Fox because it was too detailed. And that's when I learned the concept I hadn't encountered before, which is they don't want everything explained, because if everything's explained, it pigeonholes them with the stories that they can tell, and it cuts them up.
It somewhat demystifies things.
It somewhat demystifies things, and it takes away some of the mystery and magic, which is really what has made Alien and Aliens so, like, we don't know what's going to happen next, the drama of what comes next. But because of that, I was able to parlay that into an advantage for Phalanx, because there is no specific chemical compound or even group of chemicals or any kind of analysis really in depth about what the acid in the acid for blood is. And Phalanx brought 2 very different aspects to the table. Number 1, no guns, no spaceship, no escape shuttle you got to get away before Station X blows up. You know, some of the meat and potatoes of the Alien and Aliens franchises. So that was gone. And with no guns, how on earth can our characters survive against a horde of aliens? And the answer is they can't unless they find a way to mitigate the one key advantage aliens have, which is if it's hand to hand, even if you kill them, they're going to kill you due to the splashing acid or close up damage from claws, teeth, tails, etc. So that was the big differentiator for Phalanx, was taking away that the one key strength of the Xenomorphs, or as Ash says in the first movie, when you ask, how do you kill it? You can't, because if you kill it, it kills you. That was the biggest
one thing we should
research.
Yeah. One thing we should point out to the audience is that Phalanx is set in what is essentially a medieval society, because it's on a planet that is definitely not Earth. It's not one of the colonies that we know. And so by removing the technology from the protagonists, you give them a whole new set of things that they have to overcome.
Yeah, that was where my own strengths as a writer came in. This is a pre-industrial civilization, and I have world building experience with the Siglerverse, particularly the Galactic Football League series and the Generations trilogy, which ties in. The Generations trilogy was for Del Rey, and a good amount of experience knowing how to put the clay on the wheel and start shaping it and spinning it and come up with a society that's not us, that we're not familiar with, but still is internally consistent and makes sense. So that was the one thing I was able to bring to the table, plus just diehard love for the Aliens franchise. And the most research I had to do was pretty much talking to Alex and getting their take on the science, because I read Cold Forge, loved it, and I could see a kindred spirit where there's been so many creators and so many handlers of the creators in these franchises that the mythos is starting to get a little frayed around the edges, and a lot of things don't make sense from one book to the next. And what I read in Cold Forge was Alex like, okay, let's see if we can come in after the fact and apply a bit of a rule set to make more of these books make more sense together. Can't explain everything, but it makes more sense. So my research build on that to try and keep, okay, great. Now we got the tip of the spear of someone who's trying to reel some of this stuff in. Let's get in line behind that and see what we can do to keep that going.
I treasure those phone calls.
Well, that's one of the things that I like about working with writers like you folks. The Alien universe is a sort of a specific experience, but within that, there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity for creative development. And some of it is in literally just the strengths of the writer and the passions of the writer. And Alex, I mean, one of the things that's been amazing with you is the amount of research that you do put into it to make it work, and yet still manage to have lots of real good carnage in the process.
Oh, thank you. I do love some good carnage. I have an extensive scientific network that just happens to, a lot of it came from Dr. Stephen Grenade, actually, who runs the science track at DragonCon. But, I know astronomers and astrophysicists, I know chemists and water treatment specialists and all that kind of stuff. And what's great is you don't actually need a science network to have, I think, a really wonderful book. One of my favorite people to talk to was my water treatment specialist. This is a guy who just handles landfill water. But, I need to know about septic systems. I need to know, so one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to have a real water heavy setting, because I hadn't seen enough water in Aliens, and I always think of like Alien 4, where there's, they have that one section and I'm like, ooh, yes, I'd like some more. So
let me interrupt you for a second, because we've gone away from the Cold Forge here. The Cold Forge is the novel that really—
I'm sorry, I thought I was here to promote this one.
Well, no. The thing is that as Scott was saying, this came out of your work on the Cold Forge, but what you're now working on is Alien into Charybdis, which is a novel coming out in the spring. And this is an entirely different animal, and that's where the water systems come into place.
Oh, yes.
Which you will now explain why.
Well, it's so the entire planet is covered, of course, by mostly by a brackish lake. And which is interesting, because I found out that oceans have salinity, so don't say lake in front of a scientist unless you're sure, kind of. But the whole setting takes place around this one lava tube, this one stable lava tube that's formed in the middle of the lake. It's actually a naturally occurring phenomenon that you can see on Earth in terms of like, was it Kettle Falls? There are a couple of different things where on Earth where the water just goes somewhere and we have no idea where it goes. It just kind of falls over an edge into a hole and disappears. And I thought that is the creepiest thing. And so of course that had to be a major fixture of the Alien setting. I wanted everything to be really organized around this idea that everything is kind of going in and going down and spiraling and being awful. And so I needed to have a lot of different water systems. I needed to have a lot of different geological systems. So I consulted with Mika McKinnon, who's a master's in disaster, and she consults on shows like Stargate for volcanology and things, and doing various geological surveys to increase I think the thematic nature of the setting. One of my favorite discoveries was finding out that there's a rock that bleeds when you put acid on it. Red fluid just flows off of it, and it's black naturally, and then it gets acid on it and it bleeds. And I was like, oh, that's in there. The whole atoll is made of that. How much of this can I have? And Mika McKinnon's like, it's naturally occurring. It's everywhere. So I love scientists. I like talking to people about their industrial jobs as well. Most of my time for the last 4 years has been spent in building integrations and smart city management. And so working in those automation systems and trying to, and finding out what it's like to actually install and build skyscrapers gave me an interesting, I think, perspective on space colonies, because when you can control systems of space colonies, it changes the game in a way that a gun can never. And so you have these rednecks who can fix everything. They're building installers, and they're the main characters. They don't have guns, they don't have training, they barely get along. But they can install and fix variable airflow valves. And they would like to live. So anyway. Steve, I don't know how much to go into here. We haven't really.
I think you've really given it a lot of the background. One thing that's interesting is that you've got a group of colonial Marines in here because they do get involved. You've got a group of contractors who come in and are working with a facility that is not from the Americas, and so you're dealing with a foreign culture there as well, and you've created a lot of people who, in each group, you're going to have good people and you're going to have not good people. And so one great thing is that there's no stereotyping because you've got the diversity.
Well, you need to recognize that there are that every group contains lots of different people, and I would like to say that I've avoided stereotypes as best I can. I hope that I don't have blind spots, but that's why you pay sensitivity readers. I think that what I wanted to do was I wanted to create 3 factions that had an inherent reason to distrust one another. So we have the Colonial Marines working for the United Americas. We have the contractors who are there against the wishes of the State Department because the company that owns the planet is Iranian owned and not associated with any modern empires at that point. And so in the middle of all this paranoia, we introduce, a xenobiological life form, and that's no good. So it really helps everybody get along great.
Yeah. Well, and then of course, Scott, you didn't have this disadvantage because you literally got to create your culture whole cloth.
Ah.
Yeah, which was really fun and really liberating. My style is similar to Alex's in that there's a lot of consultation with scientists, tacticians, soldiers, etc., firemen, all the things all the day-to-day things. And when I got to write Phalanx, there was none of that because this was a pre-industrial civilization. I got to kind of build it from the ground up, how it came to be. And oddly, it became the most fun and most liberating novel experience I've had since I started because the research was, it's a fantasy novel with xenomorphs in it. And that part was a ton of fun.
And with a hell of a surprise towards the end.
Everybody talks about the surprise.
But Wes, you had a different task because you had to actually work toward a specific end because it's going to lead into an actual game. And I think you were able to create a novel that was unto itself an amazing experience, but also is part of a larger experience.
Thank you. And that was a challenge because not only did I have to deal with Disney and Fox and Titan, but I also had to deal with the game people. And so it's a round table discussion on everything that's the possible and the impossible. And sometimes, we would want something possible and sometimes it wouldn't be. And when you're given the ending, how something's going to end, it's like, huh. It's sort of liberating, but it's sort of constraining. I mean, thank you for telling me how to finish my novel, but really, I would have preferred to finish it myself. But now I have to go back to the beginning and now make it so that it really organically ends at the right point, and you don't think that this was a total function. So
Right.
I don't know. It was good at the end, and it was a great learning experience because I had never done this before. I mean, my wife, Yvonne Navarro, she had written about, I don't know, 150 tie-ins. Well, okay,
Your
maybe
wife is Yvonne. What? I am
know?
looking at Music of the Spears right now because
Yep.
Scott said swords, and I was like, I love Music of the Spears.
Yep.
Pass your compliments to my wife, your wife. God, amazing.
I will.
Drop
No,
that
yeah.
bomb on me.
So
Well, I
this
will
is my
say
first-
that I
this is
will
my
say,
first
Wes, that I
project,
think you did a very good job, because when you think about it, with most alien novels, we have some idea of where it's going to go,
Yeah.
but getting there and how you get there and what actually happens is the big reveal. Whereas I will. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true. So although I lament the fact I couldn't do the end myself, having the end there really gave me the ability as an orchestrator to kind of make all the moving parts magically fit there at the end.
Well, it definitely hit the target. We're going to need to go. We're about done here. Thank you all, Scott, Chris, Rachel, Weston, Alex. I appreciate the creativity all of you put into it, and it's kind of obvious that there's a lot of enthusiasm too, which could be worrisome. That you all like Alien that much.
Oh no.
Need some eggs now, so that's all I can say.
There you
I
go.
picked my makeup for it.
Well, thank you again, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you.